This Bordeaux has been waiting in my saddlebag for 3 months. I kept telling myself I was saving it for a special occasion, but the truth is I simply couldn't find anyone worth sharing it with. Cowboys have no palate. Plantation owners have no soul, but a fellow who blows up Parliament buildings. That man might appreciate a good vintage.
You flatter me, Doctor. Though I confess the mask makes drinking rather theatrical. I've developed a technique over the years. Straw hidden beneath the chin. Undignified, but functional. The wine is excellent. By the way, 1787. A revolutionary year in its own right. The Americans were still figuring out their constitution while the French were sharpening their guillotines. History has a sense of humor about these things.
It does indeed. I once shot a man in front of a sheriff, and the sheriff thanked me for it. The man I shot was worth $7,000 dead. The sheriff got a percentage. Everyone shook hands, and I went to lunch. The American system is fascinating in its contradictions. They wrote documents about freedom while buying and selling human beings in the town square.
England is no better. We simply hide it more elegantly. Our tyranny wears a suit and speaks with proper diction. Yours puts on a hood and burns crosses. Different costumes, same ugliness underneath. I've read about your country's peculiar institution. Slavery dressed up as commerce.
The peculiar institution. Yes, that's what they call it when they want to discuss it in polite company, as if giving something a clinical name makes it less monstrous. I spent 2 years working within that system before I met Django, collecting bounties on men who, frankly, deserved what they got. But I was still cashing checks written by slave owners, still eating at their tables. It took me longer than I'd like to admit to see the problem clearly.
And what made you see it? What was the moment when the fog lifted and you understood that cooperation was complicity? For me, it was fire. Literal fire. The facility where they held me burned, and I walked out through the flames with a new understanding. Everything before that night was sleepwalking. Everything after was purpose.
For me, it was a woman, Django's wife, Broomhilda. I never met her, but I helped him find her. Watched a man who had been property his entire life speak about this woman like she was the center of the universe. And I thought, how can I sit in parlors with men who would separate that? How can I shake hands with people who see that love is something to be bought and sold? The answer was I couldn't, so I stopped.
That's the first step. The hardest one for most people. The system makes compliance so comfortable. Wake up, go to work, follow the rules, collect your reward. Don't ask questions. Most people never even realize they've made a choice. They think they're just living. But living under tyranny is a choice. Every day you don't resist, you've chosen again.
But here's my question for you, V. When does disobedience become obligation? I was a dentist before I was a bounty hunter. A good one. Helped people with their teeth. Minded my own business. Was I wrong to do that? Wrong to live quietly while terrible things happened in counties I'd never visited to people I'd never met? At what point does a man become responsible for sins he didn't commit?
The moment he learns about them. Ignorance is the only innocence. Once you know you're implicated, you can act or you can look away. But looking away is also an action. I don't blame the people who genuinely don't understand what their government does in their name. I blame the ones who know and find it more convenient to forget. They're the ones who make tyranny possible.
That's a heavy burden. By that logic, every person who reads a newspaper becomes responsible for the contents. Every citizen who pays taxes funds the atrocities those taxes enable. You'd make criminals of everyone. And maybe you're right, maybe we are all criminals. But a philosophy that condemns everyone equally tends to excuse everyone equally. If all are guilty, none can be singled out.
Which is why I don't condemn everyone. I condemn the architects, the enforcers, the profiteers, the man who designed the camp where I was held, the doctors who experimented on prisoners, the politicians who signed the orders and then went home to their families. Regular people are victims too. They've been fed lies since birth. But the ones who tell the lies, the ones who know exactly what they're doing, those I hold accountable.
I killed a man named Calvin Candy, a plantation owner in Mississippi. He was going to let dogs tear apart a runaway slave for entertainment. I watched him conduct business like human suffering was simply part of the ledger. And at the end of our negotiation, when he demanded I shake his hand as if we were colleagues, I couldn't do it. I shot him instead. It ruined everything, cost me my life ultimately, but I couldn't shake that hand.
And was it worth it? The bullet instead of the handshake, everything that followed.
That's what I keep asking myself. Django survived, found his wife, burned the whole place down. So perhaps yes. Perhaps my small rebellion opened a door for his larger one. Or perhaps I was simply a prideful man who couldn't stomach one more indignity and dressed it up as principle afterward. I genuinely don't know. The dead have plenty of time to reconsider their choices, but no way to verify if they were correct.
I'll tell you what I believe, Dr. Schultz. Every act of defiance matters. Even the ones that fail. Even the ones that cost everything. The system survives because people believe it's unbreakable. Every time someone breaks it, even briefly, even at great personal cost, the belief weakens. You shot a monster and died for it. But somewhere, a slave saw that monster fall. And that slave remembered. That memory becomes a seed. And seeds, given time and rain, become trees that crack foundations.